Khamzat Chimaev returns to the octagon in October at UFC 294 in Abu Dhabi. His opponent will be number 6 ranked Brazilian middleweight Paulo Costa. Hello fighters! With you World of MMA channel. In today's video I will tell you 5 reasons why Paulo Costa will defeat Khamzat Chimaev. But before the beginning of the video, support the channel, donate. The link will leave a comment and descriptions of the video, as well as you can find in the cover of the channel. Thank you very much in advance. While it makes sense for Khamzat Chimaev to move up to 185 pounds permanently if he can no longer make the 170 pounds welterweight limit safely, whether Boers is truly big enough to succeed at middleweight is a question mark. Sure, current middleweight champ Israel Adesanya isn't a hulking specimen at 185 pounds, but his sniping striking style doesn't require him to be. Chimaev's bullying pressure game, on the other hand, seems to rely largely on him having a physical advantage over his foes. It's true that Boers wouldn't necessarily be the smallest middleweight on the roster, as he stands at 6 feet 2 inches and has a pretty sizable frame. Against an opponent like Paulo Costa though, it's hard to imagine him not giving up plenty of size. Paulo would be giving up 2 inches of height to the Chechen, but he'd make up for that with his insane muscle mass. Put simply, Costa is a huge middleweight who has struggled to make the 185 pounds limit in his own right before. Even if Chimaev were to pack muscle on prior to the fight, it's unlikely that he'd be able to match up to Costa's strength and size, giving the Brazilian a potential advantage in this prospective bout. Despite a flawless 12-0 MMA record with 6 wins coming inside the UFC, there's one question that still hangs over Khamzat Chimaev. It has to do with his gas tank. Chimaev was able to whitewash 5 of his foes in the UFC, but in his bout with Gilbert Burns, Durinho proved to be tough enough to withstand the early onslaught from the Chechen. In the end, Chimaev clearly tired out during the 3-round clash, and although he eventually came out on top via unanimous decision, he absorbed a total of 119 strikes in the process, more than in the rest of his bouts in the octagon combined. With that in mind, it's probably fair to ask what would happen if Chimaev were to face an opponent as willing as he is to push for a torrid pace. Paulo Costa could be such an opponent. Paulo isn't a stranger to looking exhausted in the octagon in his own right. However, in his wild fights with Yoel Romero, Marvin Vettori and Luke Rockhold, he was able to swing as many shots during the later rounds as he was in the early ones. If the Brazilian looked to push the pace in a clash with Chimaev, could Boers keep up without faltering? It's a fair question to ask given how badly he gassed out against Burns. If he were to get that tired against Costa, it's safe to say that he'd be in trouble. While Khamzat Chimaev's grappling game has thus far looked brilliant in his brief UFC career, it's safe to say that he hasn't faced the toughest opposition in that area just yet. Sure, Kevin Holland and Li Jingliang are known for their dangerous ground games, but neither man has the best defensive wrestling. While Gilbert Burns has world-class jiu-jitsu skills, his bout with Chimaev barely hit the ground. Could Paulo Costa give Boers some problems in the grappling department then? Given that he has made his name in the UFC as a striker, many fans will probably be inclined to lean towards no. However, Paulo is actually a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt in his own right. Prior to his arrival in the UFC, he was known primarily for his grappling, particularly his takedowns and top control. Could Chimaev take him down? It's a possibility. Given that he holds a takedown defense rate of 79% and has rarely been planted on his back, it's equally likely that Costa could stuff any shots. If he could put the Chechen fighter on his back, meanwhile, who knows what would happen? Overall, Costa cannot be written off as a one-dimensional striker in this prospective matchup, and his underrated ground game could be key to his success. Despite winning the majority of his bouts via submission, there's definitely some evidence that Khamzat Chimaev is a very powerful striker. He needed just one big right hand to turn out the lights on Gerald Meerschaert, for instance, and he also dropped Gilbert Burns more than once. However, in a possible fight with Paulo Costa, Would the punching power of Boers actually translate well? It's highly debatable. Paulo has an absolutely phenomenal chin that has stood up to some of the most powerful hitters in the middleweight division. His only knockout loss came at the hands of current middleweight champ Israel Adesanya. Even then, Costa managed to walk through a clean kick to his head and keep fighting. Most notably, Costa took a series of absolutely huge shots from Yoel Romero, one of the heaviest hitters in middleweight history, in their 2019 clash. Costa remained standing throughout the majority of the bout, even laughing the blows off at one point. Overall, the Brazilian has absorbed a total of 545 strikes during his time with the UFC, but only Romero and Adesanya have ever knocked him down. Based on this evidence, the chances of Chimaev being able to turn out his lights would be very slim. Given that he has absorbed a total of 119 strikes against the heavy-handed Gilbert Burns, it'd probably be unfair to question Khamzat Chimaev's chin and his ability to weather punishment. However, it wouldn't be a stretch to suggest that he's never faced an opponent who hits quite as hard as Paulo Costa. A striker who is nearly always on the attack, Paulo has a bullying style on the feet that has been compared to heavyweight legend Ali Star Overeem. Like the Dutchman, Costa loves to walk his opponents down and then deliver crushing combinations as they back up towards the fence. Paulo used this style to stop the likes of Uriah Hall and Johnny Hendricks. He even defeated Yoel Romero in the same way, giving the Cuban a taste of his own medicine with a bullying performance. So could Khamzat Chimaev's chin stand up to such punishment? Given that he's never faced as hard a hitter before, it's hard to say. Essentially, there's every chance that Boers could end up overwhelmed by the power of Costa, giving the Brazilian a huge chance of winning this bout. What can we say about the outcome? Paulo is the most difficult opponent in Khamzat Chimaev's career. He is bigger and better in skills than Boers' previous opponents. Khamzat should not underestimate his grappling skills and his knockout power. I agree that in recent fights Paulo isn't showing his best self as he did in the fights before Adesanya. But any mistake of Khamzat can lead him to defeat. What do you guys think? Will Paulo be able to inflict his first defeat on Khamzat? Write your opinions in the comments. And also don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give us a like. Bye, everybody.